At this point, I'd like to introduce our general evaluator for this week, Hannah. Hannah is the president of our club, and she will be introducing the evaluators and evaluating the meeting itself. Hannah?
Thank you. All right. We're going to move into the evaluation portion of our meeting, which is where we give feedback to the speakers on either positive or negative reinforcement or things that they can do to become better speakers. And that's one of the value that we provide as a club is giving feedback and giving continuous feedback to all speakers. So I want to introduce myself as the first evaluator, so introducing myself. I'm evaluating Starlet's speech, which is more of an icebreaker speech, but I do encourage everybody to do as many icebreakers as they can, especially as we get to know each other. And it's a great way just to start your public speaking, I guess your pathway is to jump in and do icebreakers, as many icebreakers as you can about yourself so we can all learn about you. And it's easy to talk about yourself, and I knew a few things about Starlet, but I was actually blown away. I didn't know any of the other stuff. So I was over here like, I thought it was already one wow, and I was already 3 wows in. I was like, wow, another wow. And I thought that was pretty cool, some of the things that she highlighted about herself. The other things I already knew about her was like kind of her career path and like what she studied, and then kind of her marriage. But I didn't know she had been married for over 22, or known her spouse for 22 years, and that's pretty amazing and very rare. And I also didn't know that you're also involved with youth and more of the criminal justice background, so that was kind of cool. Some of the interesting facts really blew me away. Like I was like, wow, about the game show, because I actually went on The Price is Right too, and I didn't win anything. I was there for the college edition, so it's like the one where they have all the universities there, and then we went as a group. So it was kind of cool to be part of a game show. It's like one of the things I do recommend if you can do it in your life, sign up to do it. It's very like, it'll change your perspective on like, wow, this is how the show looks like, and the set is like tiny, and the show looks like it's huge. It's also very fun, so I do recommend doing that. And the whole Panama thing, like winning your own honeymoon, I thought that was pretty incredible. So you shared some really nice, interesting facts about yourself. One thing I also appreciate is you had natural vocalization, so it was like you were just talking to somebody in front of you, which sometimes in our speeches we kind of tense up or we seem like really stiff, but it was very natural, and you had a natural type of conversation with everybody in the room where it was as if you were just sitting down across this table or we're having coffee or dinner and you're just talking. And so that was a good part of your vocalization. So you had good control of your breathing, which I feel like is one thing a lot of Toastmasters or any people in public speaking, myself included, I struggle with is breathing in between talking a lot, especially for a long amount of time. And so I think you did a really good job at that, controlling your breathing. You did have a little pause at the end, and then the only feedback I would give is to kind of close strong or end your speech strong. One thing we would like to hear is kind of where your future is going, right? You talked about like your past and your background and what you're passionate about, some of the very interesting things that happened in your life, but like what about the future? So all these amazing things, I'm pretty sure you're preparing for more amazing things coming down in your life, and talking about not where you are, but where you're headed. And that's what people always want to hear about. They don't want to hear about like your problems or your struggles. They want to know where you're going in life. Like, where's your path? What's your destiny? What's the next goal that you have? And you talked like a little bit about limiting debt and starting a family and things like that. So that was good that you threw that in there. Just like more dream selling and going big. So that was the only feedback, closing strong, that I have for you, Starlet. But overall, great icebreaker speech. Thank you. Second evaluator we have for a Wyoming speech on robotics is Harun. So Harun's a Toastmaster, but he's also a evaluator.
Thank you, Hannah. Wyoming. Wyoming had a speech about the introduction about robots and about the business of robots. The thing that I found really interesting about your speech was the fact that, you know, around this place, when we talk about robots or anything tech related, we always seem to sort of hone in on the product side of things, about the act of making something. But what I found really interesting about your speech was that you focused on the business about robots. and not just about the business, but there's the product, the robots, but what does it actually take about building about business? I mean, what the components of a business are supposed to be: the inventory, materials, the engineering team, the people that you need to build a business. And I think that that's an aspect that sometimes when we talk about technology, we forget. So that was one of the things that I really found really interesting and sort of honed in, and that your focus on that was really apt to about, if somebody could actually think about what are the practical aspects of building it. So you focused on how. The why, of course, but why robots are important and what the impact is in our daily lives. You spoke about, self-driving cars with Tesla and drones. You related that to a real-world event, what happened in the Middle East, what we saw in the news, and then you saw about all these pictures about Tesla's spaceships going up and down, automated and automatically landing. These are really examples about what is happening and why and how it relates to us. The one thing that I also found very interesting was that it actually, by focusing on not on the aspect about what is successful, you focus on a story that illustrates the failure of a robot. And I think that's important because it helps sort of illustrate what the risk and the problems are and puts everything in perspective. That's something that I found really interesting. So you kind of hit on all the important notes about, if you're informing somebody about the why, the what, and the how to do it. One thing that I do want to emphasize is that perhaps you could also focus on a little bit about the people aspect of what it takes to be successful. I know that you've sort of briefly touched about mentioned about the company that actually ended up succeeding in the marketplace, but focusing on bringing that a little bit to sort of bring a contrast that it's not all hard work. There's actually some reward to it that sort of inspires people to go on and build that any business really about robots or widgets or whatever that you're building. So that's kind of my evaluation there. Thank you very much. It was really informative, and I hope to hear you speak again. Thank you.
Great, thank you, Varun. And then next up we have Dan, who's going to be evaluating Arch's speech on meditation.
My experiences with meditation have been minimal at best. I've tried it a few times, sat down in a chair, got kind of bored, and never continued. So the idea of doing, I forget how long it was, like a week worth of nothing but meditation was fascinating to me. First off, I'd like to thank you for the very nice intro. You bring the audience in by first asking the question, who here has meditated? Are you still meditating? Two very different questions. And by forcing us to think about that, you immediately bring us into your experience. And speaking of the experience, one thing that you'll always hear when people are advising you about speaking is to make a story out of it. And you did that with your description. How you started with the preparation, the wait list, going out to the dinner first day, your first 3 days, the lessons. It all made for an interesting narrative that took us through. One thing that I think you could improve a little bit on is focus on the transitions in your speech. It all came out as a little bit monotone, so you would say things like, and then we had the dinner the first night, we went to the meditation, the gong ringing at 4 a.m. and said, wait a minute ago it was night, and now it's the next morning already? If you could vary your tone a little bit when you're going from one moment to another, or move a little bit. For example, we had our first meditation session that night. The next morning, the gong rang at 4 a.m. A little pause, a little change in tone, maybe a change in movement or in direction would help carry through those transitions a little bit better and help us keep track of where we are in the narrative. Also, when you're transitioning from things like talking about the experience to the lessons learned, And that was the first 3 days. There were so many lessons I learned from that, something like that. That all said, the capstone of the lessons learned was a very nice coda to the whole thing, describing events like the flashlight, although quite frankly I kind of wondered if maybe the reason you fell into the hole wasn't because you were blinded by the light. But putting it all in perspective, letting us know what you learned, the experiences that you had in your mind giving up and shutting out the pain, those were all a wonderful coda to the whole thing. So thank you very much for sharing your experiences with us. Take care.
Thank you, Dan, for your evaluation and for your speech. I'm not going to take too much time doing an overall general evaluation, but as far as timing goes, if we can start the meeting on time, we'd love to give everybody extra time. And I know everybody took the extra time today because all our speeches were very interesting. But I would just say let's try to watch our timing moving forward. And then we're going to call upon roles. Right? I don't have that.
Table topics.
Oh, table topics, yeah. Jennifer is a table topics master.
Well, is it 9 a.m. already?
No, it's wrong. That's a wrong.
Oh, okay, thank God.
Sorry, Zona.
Thank you, Jennifer.
Okay, good, because I've got a 9 a.m. meeting.
So we have about 5 minutes left for the